Hello, my name is Gus, but you can call me BatGus, and we are back with our Batman the Animated Series commentary. Today we're going to talk about one very polemic episode in this show. Polemic in a good way, I believe, because it's considered one of the worst in the show, but I kind of like it, which is called Batman is in My Basement. And this one is a complete 180-degree turn from the last one, It's Never Too Late, because now it's a very kid-friendly episode and one that is not very well regarded by the fans of the show. But we're going to talk more about it soon. For now, let me do a countdown so we can start watching together. If you have your DVD box set or Blu-ray box set or your streaming service to watch the episode with me, I'm going to do this countdown in 3, 2, 1, let's go. So the Warner Bros. Logo is on the screen. And what we have here in this episode, Batman is in My Basement, is the introduction of the Penguin into the show. This is the first appearance of the Penguin in the show. And as at least in this time of Batman, if we remember the old TV show from the 60s with Adam West and Burt Ward, the Penguin was always this funny figure, right? Or at least this figure that is bizarre and kind of quirky and strange and kind of comedic in all his portrayals. And here is not different. We also have a very comedic portrayal of the Penguin, which I love, to be honest. I think he's very funny. At least in this first season of the show, the Penguin is a very funny villain. He's never taken very seriously. And this is something that I kind of appreciate, because the 108-degree spin that is the tone shift between the last episode to this one is something that I like in this animated series, right? I never wanted this TV show to be just one thing. And Batman the Animated Series for me is famous for that, for bringing all these different tones and themes and styles of storytelling. For example, in the last one, It's Never Too Late, we had a gangster story, very adult, very mature story. And now we have a very kids-friendly story, which brings us back to the style of Home Alone, for example. It's basically Batman meets Home Alone in this episode, because I'm not talking about the story so far, because I am just introducing the whole theme of this episode. But we started with these criminals breaking into a building and to rob a diamond, and Batman showed up to stop them, but then Batman is attacked by a huge bird, a very huge bird, and he gets scratched by the bird because he has long nails. It has long nails, and Batman gets some clues around. He finds some bird foods on the top of the building, which will lead him to the Penguin eventually. And then we are introduced to these kids on a normal neighborhood, and the main boy, I mean, we have 4 main kids in this story, right? We have this boy that kind of looks like Macaulay Culkin with glasses, and his name is Sherman, and he is a nice kid. that likes to play detective, and his best friend is a girl called Roberta, and there are these other two kids in the neighborhood that are kind of bullies that they don't like Sherman very much. They mock him and pick on him. Anyway, and Sherman, he has a binocular, and he sees through the binocular the bird that fought Batman early in the episode flying over the houses of the neighborhood. So he and Roberta follow the bird with their bikes, very Stranger Things style or E.T. style. They follow the bird with their bikes, and they end up in this old abandoned factory where they will find the goons that were robbing the diamonds on the building where Batman arrived to stop them. And they spy on these guys. And this is when the Penguin arrives at the scene. And it's a very comedic appearance because he shows up doing these bird noises to call his bird. And it's a very interesting portrayal of the character because apparently Paul Dini and Bruce Timm, they wanted to create a Penguin that was more mob gangster and more realistic, but right at the time that the TV series was coming up, it was 1992, right? So Batman Returns, Tim Burton's Batman Returns, was also being released, and Warner wanted the Penguin and Catwoman, but especially Penguin, to be created as similar as Danny DeVito in that movie. The visual style of the character, right? They wanted to be exactly like that. So they called Bruce Timm to come to the set of Batman Returns, and they told him to basically copy the visual of Danny DeVito in that movie and create a character for the animation like that. And he did, and he's very similar. If you look at that, the Penguin in this show and the Penguin in the movie, they are very similar in terms of visual. But anyway, it could have been something very different, and it will be something very different eventually in the next season when they have a change of designs in these characters. So Batman saves the kids in the factory. He takes them out of trouble. Again, it's a very children's story kind of episode, so it's very, light in tone. He tells the kids to leave the factory. They do, but then the Penguin throws a gas bomb in Batman, which will cause a lot of damage to him. He becomes almost unconscious, and he calls the Batmobile by his belt using the radio transmitter, and he basically crawls into the car because he's very bad in shape. And nearby, the kids see this, and they enter in the car to help Batman, which will develop into one of the most fun scenes in the episode, where the kids will have to drive the Batmobile to get out of there. So the Penguin is after them, and they start to push all the buttons in the panel. They start to, you see all the things in the Batmobile moving like weapons in all parts of the vehicle, and eventually they press one button that releases a gas that is very it's a very useful for them to escape, and they are able to close the top of the hood to close the car. The bad guys try to enter, and they mount on top of the car and beat it with their hands, and the penguin hits the top of the car with his umbrella. It's very comedic. All of the things in the scene are very comedic, and eventually Sherman is able to speed the car on the road, which will toss the goons away from the top of the car, and also the penguin. Again, all in a very funny way. And it's interesting that, just talking about a little detail that I always notice about the penguin. Most of the penguin stories, not just in this TV show, but also in the old TV show, in the classic Adam West show, and in the movies as well, there's always this scene with the penguin and the Batmobile for some reason. There's always some kind of relation between these two elements, penguin and Batmobile, because in Adam West 60s Batman, we had an episode where the penguin hijacks the Batmobile and steals the Batmobile. A whole episode about that. Then in Batman Returns, we also have the penguin hijacking the Batmobile and controlling it to hit the people on the streets and all these things to incriminate Batman. Then here we have just a little scene here that I mentioned where the penguin is on top of the Batmobile. But in this show, in some episodes in the future, probably in the next season or the third, I don't remember, there is an episode where the penguin hijacks the Batmobile as well to control it. So again, another scene with penguin and the Batmobile. Then in the Batman, Matt Reeves' The Batman, we have a chase between the penguin and the Batman in his Batmobile. So there's always this relation that I don't understand why they always use the penguin and in some kind of plan regarding the Batmobile. Anyway, so the kids took Batman to Sherman's house, and we're gonna see that Batman is taken into his basement in secret. His mother doesn't know about it, and that's why the name of the episode is Batman in My Basement. But it's a funny scene because the kids, they really have Batman on their basement, and Sherman's mom asks, what the hell is he doing in the basement, doing all the noise? And Roberta, his friend, she tells Sherman's mom about having Batman on the basement, which obviously the woman doesn't believe and thinks this is just a prank. So she doesn't really bother to check this information. And then the kids, the other two bully kids, they find the Batmobile outside Sherman's house, and which will eventually makes them join the whole plot of the episode. And again, this is there's not much I can say about this episode besides the fact that it's very light in tone, and And even though it's one of those that people don't really like because it's kind of silly and, kids, Batman and kids don't really match in terms of tone, I think it's a really fun episode. And it's another example of how much this series move around in terms of genres of stories and themes, right? And the genre of this episode is a kids movie. It's a Home Alone. It's I don't know. It's Goonies, maybe, right? Because the kids are also involved in a criminal investigation. And they are investigating some criminals, which kind of reminds me of the whole gang of the Goonies as well, that the kids investigate. Eventually, the Sherman realizes that Batman needs his capsules that are antidotes for poison gas in the compartment of the hood of the Batmobile, and he gives one of the capsules to Batman because Batman is still half unconscious, right? He doesn't move, and he spends most of the episode like this. So basically, the whole episode is about these kids taking care of Batman. Then eventually the Penguin arrives at the house of the boy because Penguin's bird was able to see the Batmobile parked in front of the house. So he warned Penguin about their location. And now the Penguin arrives at the house, and we're going to have this very creative scene that is purely Home Alone, where Penguin breaks into the house. Sherman's mom is not around because she went to the supermarket early. So it's basically the kids versus the Penguin's gang. And we're gonna see one of the best representations of Home Alone, with the kids making traps to catch the Penguin and his goons. And Penguin is basically this kids movie villain where he enters the house and breaks the furniture, breaks the vases, and he's looking for these kids. Then one of the goons falls into a trap, and another goon also falls into another trap, which is a bomb on a step of the stairs. And even though the traps in this episode are not as violent or as well planned as the ones of Kevin McAllister in Home Alone, they are very well done. Which they work because the kids catch the Penguin, and the Penguin, with his aristocrat fashion, mocks the kids and their ways, because he says, "Oh, children defending their nest." This is another characteristic of the Penguin in here, but is not very well developed, or they don't focus too much on it. That is the aristocrat ways of the Penguin, right? And the character definitely has this background in comics and some other versions, and in here is implied that he also has this, but he's not. They don't spend too much time on it. Anyway, the Penguin eventually is able to trap the kids back, and him and his goons are able to get to the kids and go down to the basement to get Batman. And Penguin is gonna use his umbrella with a spinning blade to kill Batman in front of everybody. But in the last second, Batman wakes up and we have this fight in the basement, which is again very comedic. He fights Penguin's goons, throws them around. Then eventually Penguin tries to attack him, and he fights him as well. He pushes a kind of knife out of his umbrella, and it is very funny Batman fighting Penguin, right? This short, fat guy fighting a muscle brick wall like Batman is just too funny. And Batman gets a screwdriver around and fights the Penguin, almost like two knights fighting with swords, using the Penguin using the knife and Batman using the screwdriver. It's just too light in tone, right? But Batman is able to push the Penguin with his foot, kick him, and Penguin flies onto a shelf and destroys the shelf and gets knocked down. Then Sherman's mom arrives. She sees that the whole thing was true. Batman is really there. And he introduces Batman to his mom. And Batman, in a very gentleman way, says, "Ma'am." He just says, "Ma'am." Then Sherman cracks this little joke asking if Batman is a single guy. And then we have this ending where all the kids get together and become this detective group, right? Sherman, his friend Roberta, and the two bully kids. They become their employees now. Now Sherman is a boss. And they talk about other crimes that they will investigate. And the episode ends with Batman on the window of the basement, basically watching the kids and moving on. And that's it, people. Another episode of Batman the Animated Series. Very quick and kind of expendable episode, but it's fun. I like it. Anyway. And if you are liking this content of Batman the Animated Series commentaries, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like so we can continue doing those. And you can also watch the other episode commentaries right here in this playlist. See you in the next Bat video, and bye-bye.